Welcome to the Hammond Museum of Radio. The door creaked slowly open, and the creepy voice sent shivers down the spines of families everywhere. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows. Hi-ho, Silver! Away! And the Lone Ranger set off on another adventure on his big white horse. By 1929, radio was the most popular medium of mass entertainment throughout North America. Families gathered around their large wooden radios and laughed at comedians like Jack Benny and Fibber McGee and Molly. They sang along and danced in the living room to the tunes of Bing Crosby and the Guy Lombardo Orchestra. They thrilled to the voice of Foster Hewitt shouting, "He shoots! He scores!" The entertainment was free, but a radio could cost as much as $250, the same price as the Model T Ford, and required a license renewed yearly to operate. Families all over North America were listening to the same music, news, stories, and sports. Their isolation was ended, and the era of universal entertainment began. In Guelph, a young man named Len Hammond became obsessed with the new medium of radio, reading all he could and eventually building the first radio in Guelph using an Audiotron tube and parts made in the shop. His father, Oliver Hammond, was an inventor who was trained as a tool and die maker. In 1917, he established a small manufacturing enterprise in his home to produce pneumatic vibrators for the foundry business. When Oliver Hammond died in 1925, Len and his brothers Roy, Fred, and Ken took over leadership of Hammond Manufacturing. They combined their knowledge and abilities to design transformers, broadcast station equipment, electrical and electronic enclosures, and other products, which put the company in the forefront of the industry. Today, Hammond Manufacturing and Hammond Power are still industry leaders, celebrating over 100 years in business. One of the brothers, Fred Hammond, became a licensed amateur radio operator in 1929 and began collecting radios. He subsequently accumulated an extensive collection of rare and historically significant pieces, which eventually became the basis of the Hammond Museum of Radio in 1982. He was respected around the world for his expertise and generosity, and was named to the Canadian Amateur Hall of Fame in 1997. The museum grew from Fred Hammond's original collections with donations, and now contains more than 2,000 artifacts and documentation that illustrate the history and development of radio from 1893 to 1980. The museum is divided into several different and distinctive areas. Telegraph, early wireless, and broadcast are arranged sequentially to demonstrate the history and development of radio from the late 1800s through the 1920s, as well as the 1930s golden age of broadcast. After the first radio broadcast, radios became much more popular, accessible, and affordable. These radios represent the different ways and shapes radios took for use in the home. Exhibits include table models, mantelpiece models, cathedrals, and floor model consoles. This area emphasizes the impact radio had on everyday life, bringing weather, music, and current events into the home. Crystal radios were inexpensive and easy to operate receivers, capable of receiving any station within 25 to 55 mile radius, given a long wire antenna and ground connection. Many of these were called crystal radios because they used a gallon of crystal, a mineral with the ability to change radio waves into audio waves. Users would chisel off a piece of the crystal and touch a certain wire called a cat's whisker until they found a spot where they could hear the sound being transmitted. In 1921, Quaker Oats was looking for an advertising gimmick for their new Quick Quaker Oats. For $1 and 2 Quaker Oats box tops, you would receive a crystal radio, a set of headphones, and 100 feet of antenna wire to run from your home to the highest tree in the yard. 250,000 of these radios were used in U.S. homes in 1921. The Mercury Super 10 made in Canada, used by radio station CFCA to rebroadcast programs from England. The telegraph was invented in the mid-1880s. On display are various models of telegraph keys, sounders, and relays. The last official telegraph was sent on October 14, 1972. This 1910 Marconi transmitter is similar to the one used on the Titanic. This clock radio was a Westinghouse columniere manufactured in 1931. It was on display at the Canadian National Exhibition. The speaker is on the top and the controls are on the side, and no snooze button. Radio communication played an important role in both World War I and World War II. The museum features 2 working amateur radio stations. Once you study and successfully pass an exam set by Industry Canada, you can become a licensed to operate amateur radio equipment like this. We communicate all over the world to other amateur radio operators in either voice or Morse code. The museum's call sign is V83BG. Fred Hammond's call sign is VE3HC and is still sponsored by his son, Rob. This station is open to operators with the proper license and by request of the museum. This is the foundation of the Hammond Radio Museum collection and contains a wide variety of amateur radios, like ham equipment spanning a period of 1920 to 1990. It contains one of the finest collection of Collins radio equipment in North America and many other pieces. Much of this equipment has evolved from commercial and military products. Also, many amateur operators built their own transmitter and receivers, and many still do today. Our tour of this amazing collection could go on much longer, but we will end it with some of the beautiful pieces that you can see around the museum. The age of radio may have been displaced by our world of screens and social media, but nothing can replace the stories told in this amazing collection at the Hammond Museum of Radio.